espousing his message while Mark Carney was in Ottawa, while Jagmeet Singh was also in Ottawa at the time. So whether or not, even despite being the last leader to visit this automotive heartland, the manufacturing heartland of Canada, whether or not he was able to speak most directly to the people. And I think that also the other story that just sticks out for me is that the NDP really wanted to talk about the fact that they were endorsed by so many unions, the most unions of any party, despite the fact that Liberals and the Conservatives were actively courting. Unions that represented more than 1 million workers. But those unions, those unionized workers may not have showed up for them at the polls. Vashi, Omar.
All right. Thank you so much, Judy. A lot of different results coming in British Columbia. We're seeing some significant pickups for the Conservatives, but also for the Liberals, all of it at the expense of the NDP. A lot to watch there. It's a very dynamic situation, and it's going to inform where those numbers at the bottom of your screen actually end up over the course of the evening.
Let's get to Heather Butts. She's been tracking the context in all of this, looking at the people behind the numbers. And Heather, what can you tell us?
Well, Omar, we're actually going to pick up on what my colleague Judy Trin was just talking about there, and that is the NDP and how they ended up losing so many votes and where those votes went to. So, Nick, we're going to talk about vote efficiency. What does that mean for our audience?
Well, you have to think of it this way, Heather. The thing is there's popular support, and the thing is that the number of seats you can generate with the votes that you have, the more efficient that you are, the more likely you are to win an election. In this particular campaign, those smaller parties, the NDP and the Bloc, just have been crushed by both the Liberals and the Conservatives.
And let's head to southwestern Ontario. We're giving you a map, a visual representation of what Judy Trin was just talking about. The fact that the Conservatives have really swept this riding, or excuse me, this region. And this is, as she mentioned, a place where there's a lot of manufacturing jobs. The auto sector is a huge employer in this region.
Yeah,
Nick.
An absolute breakthrough for the Poilievre Conservatives in southwestern Ontario. And if you remember when at the beginning of the night we were talking about races that were too close to call, it was in this particular region. And what it shows is that the Conservative campaign was able to punch above its weight, explains why it was able to pick up a significant number of seats in Ontario and help them close the gap with the Liberals.
Okay, let's head towards the Kitchener area. Nick, I want to look at this riding. Kitchener Centre, the Conservatives in the lead by 781 votes there over the Green incumbent, Nick.
Yeah. And, great news for the Conservatives here. And, for the Greens, they don't have a lot of seats to start off with. And losing, Kitchener Centre is a significant setback for a party that's trying to make a breakthrough, and actually a party that's really struggling right now.
And Nick, I just want to point out, because we are talking about the NDP in last place in this riding with just 625 votes.
Yeah, and think of it this way. There are a lot of university students around there, so the fact that the Greens are losing this seat, the NDP are not doing well, is really indicative of what's happening tonight.
Okay, let's take a look at Kitchener-Conestoga. Two-horse race here, Nick. The Conservatives in the lead by 592 votes over the Liberal incumbent.
This probably speaks to the organization of the ground on that the Conservative campaign has in terms of them challenging to unseat the Liberal incumbent in Kitchener-Conestoga.
Okay, and Nick, let's talk about vote efficiency. That is what we were talking about earlier, about getting out the vote. Just walk us through this. The Conservatives doing quite well.
So, yeah, think of it this way. With 49% of the votes in southwestern Ontario, they won a whopping 83% of the seats. It speaks to the effective targeting, probably the tour of Pierre Poilievre in southwestern Ontario, and how he's able to convert, a certain number of 49% into like a majority, 8 out of every 10 seats in southwestern Ontario. And you look at the Liberals, not being as efficient in terms of converting their support into seats.
We really see that, Nick, especially when we talk about getting out the vote and how they are campaigning across the country. So if we look at the vote value nationally, it's very similar to the polling information, Nick.
Yeah, it is. Except if you're the New Democrats. Think of it this way. They only converted, their percentage by 1/3, like 6% to 2% in terms of percentage of seats. It shows how inefficient the New Democrats were.
Certainly a very big story unfolding this evening with the New Democrats, and it is seen right there on that vote efficiency. We'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Heather, thank you so much. I want to send it to Geneviève Beauchemin, who's at Liberal headquarters right now. And obviously, positive news for the Liberals, if you're a Liberal, seeing the fact that there is, Geneviève, a Liberal government. The fact that it's a minority government certainly doesn't give them the mandate of a majority government. What's your reaction in the room where you are?
Well, there was a lot of cheers and there was some hugging when the announcement was made that it was going to be a Liberal government. The minority part of it is, of course, worry. Some people are just like I saw some people biting their nails still watching the screen a few moments ago. Now, I do have two Liberal supporters with me, Tyler Romans and Bernadine Clifford. They actually met door knocking and they met up again tonight. So relationship on the road there that was budding and then meeting up again here tonight. Just tell me your thoughts about when you saw. I know that you were very emotional.
I was. I came in here tonight unsure, and I'm relieved to see what's happened tonight. I think the right person has been chosen, and I will sleep better.
Yeah, you were saying that if there wasn't going to go the Liberals' way, you were going to be devastated.
I was going to be a hot crying mess, and I don't know. Yeah, I'm so pleased with the results.
And I know, Tyler, I just wanted to ask you, we're looking at some of the numbers in Carleton, and Pierre Poilievre's riding, and we don't know how that's going to end. What are you making it? I guess that's the next bar. Everybody in the room is trying to see what's happening.
I'm very excited about the early numbers. I'm very optimistic. I think it shows that you can't count, Liberals out until the race is actually over. And I do think that Poilievre does have his work cut out for him, and it's very exciting to see. I'm looking forward to how it's going to turn out.
You were both door knocking in Nepean, of course, Mark Carney's riding. Tell me about what people were telling you at the door. What made you hopeful about tonight, even though you were still apprehensive?
Made me hopeful. The positive response that I got at the door, and when I went back to find out whether they had voted today and got even better responses, that they had voted in the advance polls or voted this morning. So, yeah, it gave me more hope.
You were talking about the fact that many people had gone to the polls early. That was what we found.
Yeah, exactly. I find that this election in particular is a very important one of our time, and I think the turnout is going to show that. I obviously don't know the numbers right now, but I think we're going to have a much higher turnout than our last election, and that's a good thing for Canada as a whole, for our democracy, and the people getting out to vote is nothing but good things for this country.
I did want to ask, you told me before that both of you had not really been volunteers before. What was it about this particular election?
Yeah, so this one I think is, based on the geopolitical climate that we have, here and abroad, it's a very important election. I have two young daughters at home. I would like to set an example for them and shape a future that I would like them to see Canada as they grow up in.
Thank you so much. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you so much, Geneviève Beauchemin there talking to some Liberal supporters. If we could, I'd love to call up the popular vote right now, because it is telling a fascinating story of the evening. We knew there would be a coalescing of support, according to public opinion polls, behind one of the two parties, Omar. But my goodness, to what degree? Both parties right now have captured more than 40% of the popular vote. I think we're at something like, my eyes are terrible, but I think it's 42.6% compared to 41.9%. We're looking at less than 1%. That divide, that separate these two parties. Like, this is the last time the Conservatives won a majority government. They were at 39-point-something%. They didn't even eclipse 40%. They've eclipsed it, and they aren't able to form government. This is unreal, actually.
You're absolutely right to point that out. I mean, in any other context, any popular vote number north of 39% would have been majority territory. But the fact that the Conservatives there, you can see 41.9. The numbers are shifting as the votes are being counted. It is just another fascinating storyline in a night of fascinating storylines as the numbers are coming in real time. I want to get to Anne-Marie and her panel right now. And Anne-Marie, a couple questions for your panel that I've got thinking of as we're watching this data come in. Donald Trump, does he see tonight's result of a minority government as a weakness? And is there a scenario to combat that by offering a Conservative a chance to form cabinet with Mark Carney? Could we see that coalition situation?
I knew you would want to jump in.
Silence,
It would be highly unlikely for a prime minister to invite an opposition member to sit in cabinet. There might be ways to informally work together in Parliament at committees. There's lots of work to be done at committees together. What this is showing is that, look, I mean, the Conservatives have won almost 30 seats. They've grown their base. They won more votes than since 1988. So their showing is good, but it's very frustrating to not form a majority. And the Liberals are coming back with a few more seats thanks to the collapse of the NDP and the Bloc. So I think everybody's got to come back a bit humbled and hopefully come back to Parliament, recognizing that these are the two parties that really need to work together if we want to do something on the economy and we want to deal with the issues of trade and tariffs. Because I don't know if we're going to find the dance partner with the Bloc or the NDP, potentially. So let's hope that both leaders can focus on the economy. But no, I don't think you would see a prime minister invite someone from the opposition to sit in a cabinet. It would be a much more informal type of arrangement.
Let me throw this then to our resident romantic, and that would be James Moore. You called yourself that, not me. Is this an enemies to lovers situation, if we could put it in a...
No, I mean, look, 4 months ago, Pierre Poilievre was going to win a big majority, and he didn't.
Yeah.
3 weeks ago, Mark Carney was going to win a big majority, and he didn't. So I think humbled is the right word.
Right.
Both parties, had outstanding turnouts in terms of the popular vote mandates that they have, but it's a question of the efficiency of the vote where it's placed around the country. In terms of go forward, I mean, look, every single day we all wake up and we pour through the headlines and we see different narratives from Donald Trump about, why he's putting in what tariffs or what he's not, and he's going after China, then he's backing away. But it's about fentanyl, no, it's not. It's about borders, it's not. It's about capturing an auto sector back into the United States and repatriating investment. On a day-to-day basis, you kind of don't know. But I think, as has been shown in the past, Ron and I sat on an NAFTA council with the former government because we put country first. And I think that, any government in this certain circumstance where it looks like the Conservative Party has a massive high new floor in terms of what its vote base of support is across the country. Pierre Poilievre did extraordinarily well in terms of the number of Canadians who voted for the Conservative Party, the best result since I was, 12 years old. And that's an incredible accomplishment, but it's not efficient, and it's more rural, and it's more working class, and it didn't quite have the efficiency in terms of seats. We don't count votes, we count seats. So there's work to be done there in the long term. But yeah, I mean, you have an absolute collapse in the New Democratic vote and a fall of the Bloc Québécois vote, and you see what you see in terms of the seat count. So, yeah, I mean, look, there's lots to go through here in terms of the results and what it means in the long term. But specifically with Canada, U.S., I think Prime Minister Carney obviously has an obligation. He asked for a mandate to become Prime Minister to deal with the United States. And there are some really smart, thoughtful people out there who have experience with this administration from 16 to 20 and the current dynamic, who he can call upon in order to try to navigate us forward for the next couple of years.
And I agree with that. But I also, I think the obligation is on Prime Minister Carney. But the obligation is also on the other members of the House of Commons who are not in government, because we are facing a national crisis. We are facing an existential threat to our economy, and so it's really important for all the members of the House of Commons to be united as often as they can. So Carney has to reach out. But also the Conservatives, I think, have to reach back too. And I think that's really what Canadians want to see, is not this not a relitigation of the election and a constant at each other's throats about everything. I think we want to see our Parliament working together.
Okay, let me ask, Harjo, I'll let you jump in a second, but let me ask you or Rada this question, James, and that is, when we've seen how Pierre Poilievre is in opposition for these last 10 years, now we're talking about a humbling on both sides. What does that look like now when we're debating? What does that look like when we're trying to get things passed? Is he able to do that kind of a pivot?
Well, you mentioned that Mark Carney should reach out and Pierre should reach back, but also it has to go the other way. So we've got this split in the country. The issue of tariffs and Trump are important for a lot of people. The issue of affordability is important for a lot of people. So Mark Carney's platform was one of big spending and new taxes. So we also need him to work with Pierre on those issues in a new budget. So there has to be the tariff issue addressed, there has to be the national unity issue addressed, there has to be the resource economy issues addressed, there has to be taxation addressed, addressing the deficit. So all of these things fall out amongst this split that's almost feels like it's almost down the middle from a popular vote point of view. And both leaders are going to have to come together and work on these together.
While those two leaders are trying to work together and to figure this piece out, what happens with the NDP? We have Jagmeet Singh, who's currently sitting in third place in his riding. Who and what does the NDP need to do next, Tom?
Wiped out in Ontario, and people like Nikki Ashton losing their seats. This is a really tough evening.
Brian Massey in Windsor West. What does that say when someone
Brian Massey's been there for 20 years. And I know of no one who's supported the auto sector more than Brian Massey. And yet we talked a lot about the GTA and the efficiency of the Liberal vote there, and that was proven tonight. But talk about a stealth operation. I mean, I don't think anybody saw the Conservatives running the table in southwestern Ontario the way they just did. So it was an extraordinary result on their part. And it reminds us that you can have the support of all of the union leaders, but that doesn't necessarily translate at all into the votes of the union members who were showing up in large numbers for Poilievre's rallies because he was talking their language.
What did they see in Pierre Poilievre that they didn't see in their NDP representatives?
I think that the NDP had become a little bit self-satisfied with the support of the union leaders, and for them that was going to be enough. It would translate into votes, but it doesn't. And that's one of the things that they had to learn. I also think that there's a little bit of a lesson in there for Mr. Poilievre and his way of dealing with things, because there is a little bit of you have to be careful what you wish for in this, because they went after Jagmeet Singh with tons of money. They attacked him very personally, calling him sellout Singh and things that were a lot worse than that, and they went after him headlong. And it worked. And a part of this result is that people who would have otherwise voted for the NDP went over to the Liberals and probably gave Mr. Carney that boost, that tiny boost, because the numbers up there, Jim said it earlier in the evening, I don't remember too many people, calling for that level of vote for the Conservatives in Atlantic Canada. I don't remember too many pollsters saying it was going to be a tie vote. I might be mistaken, but I don't think I saw that. Yeah. So, there's a little bit of a lesson in there for how the game is played, and plays into what Rana was saying before. Are we going to be able to get out of that constant attack mode? I'm not convinced. There are other partners. He can't become Carney could never become a former partner with the Bloc. That's toxic. Yeah. He's got 8 or so NDPers. He's got Elizabeth May. And is he going to be able to find enough support on a cause-by-cause basis with the Bloc to be able to govern for a year or two? I think so. I think anybody who tries to provoke the fall of this new government rapidly is going to pay a very heavy political price.
If we're going to take a closer look at the NDP and them rebuilding, what and who do they need to do that?
Well, there are good people out there, and I know some of the names that have been thought of and courted. I'll give you one. I mean, the dream candidate for a lot of the people I know in the NDP would be somebody of the caliber of Valérie Plante, who has announced she's not running again as mayor of Montreal. Very progressive, fluently bilingual, deep experience in administration. That's somebody of that caliber. She's not in the game right now, but I mean, I don't even know if she'd be interested in going to the party. But people in the party look at her as the exemplar of the type of person they would love to be able to have as leader.
Harjit, you wanted to jump in earlier. What did you want to say?
No, I think one thing is very important. We have to look at the state of our politics and where we've gone. We've gone very negative. I'm actually quite being polite when I say negative. It's gotten really bad. And I've sat in the House of Commons for a long time, trying to be cooperative with people, and I want to say there's been great cooperation. Rona and Jane's been both at times we work together. He's been on committees to give us advice. I've been in the Canada-U.S. committee, both Trump administration. We were in Rona, I believe, the U.S. when President Trump got elected the first time at our embassy. There's examples where we can work together. But the thing is Pierre Poilievre can't be just voting against us just for the sake it's us, right? When there's good policies in place, we've got to be able to work together, and we have to bring the temperature down a bit. This is what Canadians are expecting of us. So if we can do this, this is an amazing opportunity to bring back that unity. And here's the thing, though. This is what would be the best defense against Trump. Showing unity. It worked the first time.
Sure.
And we have to do it again. If we don't, we're giving advantage to President Trump. And I'm confident that Prime Minister Carney will be able to bring people together. But at the same time, yes, there's going to be a lot of work on all sides.
So go ahead, Chrissy.
Well, I was going to say, I think that elections are always about optimism versus pessimism in lots of ways. And I think the reason that Mark Carney won the election is largely because he was very optimistic about the future. And he was talking about what could be done. And so the challenge in the House of Commons, I think Harge is totally right about that, is a shift on the, in the kind of amongst the Conservative leadership to start trying to be positive and thinking about being optimistic about the country again, not just for the sake of being united, but I think, for the sake of, if they want to be successful again in the future, they can't be so dark.
I think, though, polling did show, if I recall, during the election, that majority of people that were voting for the Conservatives were voting with hope. That's what it showed. And that a big group of people voting Liberal were voting with fear because of Trump and tariffs. So I'm not saying one is better or different than the other, different motivations, and we are where we are. And
the results would back that up. What one person would see as voting for fear and the other person seeing as hope, I think you could flip those back and forth.
Easily. Yeah.
And that's what the
they self-identified that way, though, right? As voting for hope as opposed to voting for fear. That's what they were. That's how they self-identified. Having said that, we are where we are, and this is a very tight parliament, and people are going to have to figure out how to work together. So whether it's Carney figuring out what's in the Conservative platform that I feel comfortable with.
Front-loaded.
Right. Exactly. And what is, and Pierre looking at the Carney platform, what's in it that there's stuff on tariffs, there's stuff on cooperation with other countries to create different trade pacts. There's things in there that we know that hopefully they can find some common ground.
So lost Liberal decade, we're going to have to get rid of all that language.
Well, let's just look. We've all been in Parliament
if you don't,
or
it's
a
not
legislature. We've all been in Parliament and a legislature. And there's a reason why you're one sword length, two sword lengths away from each other. That's
right.
And there's a reason why the turnout is what it is and the engagement is what it is. So you can look at it negatively that it's divisive. It is divisive, but it's also been extremely engaging. People actually know platforms, they know policies, they read them, they got out to vote. Young people got out to vote, across the demographic. I think there's a silver lining here. I know we're divided, we're going to have to work together, but I love that it was such an engaging election. I think that's healthy for democracy and it's healthy for the country. I'm very sad to see what happened with the NDP. A lot of really good people, really good parliamentarians lost tonight, and that's unfortunate, and they'll have to go through a leadership race. Because I do think we're healthier with a multi-party system.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I know people have had their say, and this is what it looks like, but we're not used to being sort of a two-party run country. We're used to more diversity and more of a mix, more of a salad.
Yeah, but it's true the parliament is divided, relatively close in seats, 41-41 popular vote, divided. However, about a third of Canadians in the span of the past 6 months, a third went from voting for Pierre Poilievre to voting for Mark Carney, and then in the end kind of splitting in the end. But a third of Canadians have swished their votes around depending on the dynamic. That's not a divided country. That's a country that has differences, but differences of emphasis and choosing between, and I think we actually had two very strong, effective, honorable choices in Prime Minister. In Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre, two very different people, personalities, presentation, emphasis, but two very good choices. And I think a lot of Canadians didn't vote for one because they hated the other. They voted for one because they thought that person was better than the other. And so when you have a third of the voting population swing, as we've seen in the past 3 months, that's not a deeply divided country. It's a country trying to sort out the right answer and the right outcome in order to deal with contemporary challenges.
Well, and now we have the question is, are the Conservatives going to elect a new leader? I mean, that's a question, obviously, for another day for Conservatives. And we will find out then, do the Conservatives want to choose a more pessimistic, kind of a dark path? Or do they want to choose an optimist? And I think, that is also going to be, kind of in the next step here, going to be part of the puzzle of how the parliament works.
James, I'm going to give this last point to you. So when Mr. Poilievre comes out tonight, if he comes out tonight to give a speech, because we know that this count is going to be long, I mean, they could still be counting even when we're off the air. When does that need to start? When does that reaching out need to start? What kind of language do we need to see in here?
I mean, look, we'll see the full composition of Parliament. There are about, I think, 20 or 30 ridings in British Columbia. They're within a couple of hundred votes. There's a 9-seat margin here. Pierre Poilievre's own riding, because of this gimmick that these people had of having 90 names in the ballot, and you have to hand count them. So like people are going through these massive scrolls of ballots. Like it's physically a problem. But look, the work starts, I think, now. He's probably on the phone talking to people now and thinking about and analyzing where he wants to be and what he wants to do. And also, I think on a personal basis, we don't talk about this a lot because I think there's a barrier here about about these things and respecting people's privacy. But Pierre Poilievre has a young family. He's been at this for over 21 years. He has had extraordinarily successful results tonight. He's added to the seat counts. He got more votes than Stephen Harper ever got as a percentage of the population of people. And Stephen Harper won 3 governments. Pierre fell short tonight. But there's every reason to believe that Pierre, looking ahead to 2000 in the next campaign, whatever that is, 28 and 29. By then, the NDP will have a new leader. By then, Donald Trump will be gone. By then, Mark Carney will have a track record of successes and failures that he can talk about. The dynamic will be completely different. And if the Conservative Party rallies around Pierre, and Pierre is humble and honest about the shortcomings of this campaign and why he didn't quite get to where he wanted to get, then I think there's every reason why Pierre Poilievre should stay as leader and will have success in the future.
Okay, I'm going to let you sip that coffee while it is still hot, and I'm going to throw it back to Omar and Vashi. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. Lots of things to keep our eyes on. Just jumping off that point that James was making and Christy before him, I think we're also paying very close attention to what does happen in Pierre Poilievre's riding, because all of what James laid out is true, the increase in the share of the popular vote and popularity for the party writ large. But if Pierre Poilievre ends up having a tough time in his own riding, that may inform the discussion of future leadership in a little bit of a different way. We're looking at some numbers for potential seat changes in Atlantic Canada, where I think the flow of advance votes and the counting of them has swung things back towards the Liberals' way. Todd Battis is with us from Halifax, I believe, and he'll have some more insight on this for us. Todd?
Yeah, hi, Vashi. And we talked a lot about this at the outset of the show when it looked like there were some real positive gains being made by the Conservatives. And then as the night progressed, those numbers seemed to shift a bit. And at the end of it, when you look at the seat change in Atlantic Canada, and we just had the board there, it was the Liberals picking up a seat and the Conservatives losing a seat. Here is a riding that exemplifies that. This is the riding of St. Margaret's South Shore. I think we have it that we can show the details of it. And then this was Conservative Rick Perkins' riding. He was the incumbent, and he lost by a huge amount in the end, with still one poll remaining. Jessica Fancy Landry, the Liberal candidate, leads by just shy of 6,700 votes. So that was one of those ridings that we talked about at the beginning of the night that the Conservatives would have really loved to have hung on to. But there was a late surge in numbers there, and it really stacked up. There was another one that I'm watching quite closely, and that's in Newfoundland, Terra Nova, the peninsulas. Last time I checked, with one poll remaining, Liberal Anthony Germain was up by a few dozen votes. So that may get us into the situation with recount. I can't recall the details on what that takes to kickstart that, but that's certainly one that we'll be looking at, and there might be some movement there as well. All right, let's check out the situation in Montreal with Mitsumi.
Todd, let's take a look at what's happening in Quebec tonight. The Bloc had a bad night, but it wasn't the kind of collapse that the NDP is seeing. The Liberals have made gains, probably about 10 seats at the end of the night. The Bloc has lost 11. But what was so interesting in this campaign in Quebec is that it seems that people decided not to vote for a party that they really cared for, which is the Bloc, for fear of what was happening in the world outside Quebec. And as a result of that, language wasn't the issue it usually is here in Quebec. There was a lot of concern about Mark Carney's ability to speak French, but it was interesting to see how many Quebecers said, you know what, his French is good enough. And it didn't really matter because of all the other more pressing issues. The Liberals did make gains right across the province, in the Laurentians, in the North Shore, in the South Shore, in the area between Montreal and Quebec City, most of them at the expense of the Bloc. Thérèse de Blainville, north of Montreal, was an upset. The Bloc was expected to take that, didn't. The Liberals also managed to get LaSalle et Marthe Verdun, that's in Montreal. They got that riding back. They lost that riding at a by-election in the fall. And the Liberals are leading in a couple of places where one wouldn't have expected the Liberals to be leading. Longueuil, Saint-Hubert, a place that's not traditional Liberal, it's a bloc seat. And Abitibi-Bay-James, also a bloc area, but those areas, they're still too close to call, and the Liberals are leading in them. So it could take a while to figure out what's happening there, but still, the Liberals do have the lead. So let's go to Ottawa now. Patricia?
All right, Mitsumi, thank you. And where we're seeing a lot of change elsewhere in the country, even elsewhere in the province, not a whole lot right in Ottawa proper. Certainly, there is potential for change in a couple of ridings, but where that potential for change is what makes it also interesting. So could see a gain of a couple of Liberal seats in the Ottawa area. One of those, the Bay of Quinte, which has flopped back and forth. 2021, it went Conservative and could go back to the Liberals. And the really, really interesting riding, though, what we're seeing in Ottawa is where Bruce Vanjoy is leading over Pierre Poilievre. And with about 90 polls reporting, that lead is fairly significant. There was a lot of talk over the last few days about the potential for the Liberals to do very well there and potentially win that seat. You also saw Mark Carney on the board. That was a Liberal riding in Nepean, but of course it was a different candidate, Chandra Arya, who was in there before. That is now Mark Carney's riding. And this bit of change as well in Prescott Russell with a new person in there. But this Carleton riding is what is really intriguing for people here. It might be because of the way public servants have voted. It could be because of Stittsville. They say there's a different mix of people in that area, and some who were very put off by Pierre Poilievre, despite the fact that maybe they come from a family that has long voted Conservative. Now we're saying about the Ottawa story, because we know Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative leader, has been in there for more than 2 decades. We're going to throw it on to Toronto now as we continue to watch that. Michelle.
Good morning, Patricia. Yeah, here in the vote-rich GTA, it's not status quo. You'll remember last election, the Liberals dominated, but this election, they are losing some ground in this part of the country, and they're losing it to the Conservatives. Look at this. If we look at the Greater Toronto Area, at this point, with potentially the Conservatives picking up 10 seats, while the Liberals, led by Mark Carney, losing 9 seats. And let's boil down where the Conservatives are making some of these gains, because there are several seats where, you know, there was a Liberal incumbent and it could be Conservative. If we look specifically, this is a big gain in York Centre. Roman Baber, he was an MPP in the provincial government there. He was ousted by Doug Ford during the pandemic times, but certainly looking to go to Ottawa now. He's making a gain. Kostas Menegakis, we mentioned this one earlier, Aurora Oak Ridges, that's a gain, taking that seat from the Liberals. And look at this, Brampton South, Brampton West. It's interesting, Brampton was fully red last election, and we've got 2 ridings there that are looking to be potentially flipped blue. Also Markham Unionville as well. Michael Ma leading at this stage in the game. Parm Gill, he's a star candidate there in the Greater Toronto Area as well, leading at this stage. So there is definitely some movement, and we're seeing, as far as NDP go, non-existent in this part of the country. Let's go over to Calgary, see what's doing over there at this hour.
Thank you, Michelle. You know, in 2021, the Conservatives picked up 30 of Alberta's 34 seats. They didn't have that many more to take, but Alberta got 3 new seats, and the Conservatives immediately were gunning for them. So let's just take a look at the seat change tonight, because the Conservatives once again have done very well in Alberta. At this point, they are leading or elected in 34 of Alberta's 37 seats. So the Conservatives have picked up 5 seats. The Liberals have lost 1. And the NDP have lost 1. That's in Edmonton. We're going to take a look at a couple of the ridings around Calgary and Edmonton now, where the Conservatives have picked up seats. So Edmonton Southeast, this was the new riding where Edmonton's mayor was running. He did not win there. Kerry Diot picked up Edmonton Griesbaugh. This was an NDP seat. This was his old seat, though. He won it in 2015 and 2019. Won it again tonight. And Calgary McKnight, this was a new riding. This is where a Liberal candidate was running here and did not win as well. So again, we're left tonight of the 37 seats in Alberta. or leading Conservatives. Amanpreet Gill has taken Skyview. Jeremy Nixon has taken Calgary Confederation. He is leading there. There was no incumbent there. Billy Moore in Edmonton Northwest, that's one of the new seats that I was talking about there, and that the Conservatives were certainly gunning for. There were 3 new seats, and they managed to take them all tonight. Let's go out to Mi Zhang in Vancouver.
Thank you, Tara. The Conservatives here in BC should be quite happy about their showing. They've picked up quite a few ridings. Let's take a look at the gains here in BC, and they came mostly at the NDP's expense. The Conservatives picked up, leading or elected 6 more. Liberals 4, but look at this, the collapse of the NDP. They are down. Last time, the NDP won 12 seats in BC, half of their whole national total. So they are quite a bit down, including Jagmeet Singh, who is actually in 3rd place in his own riding. So a tough, tough night for the NDPers in BC tonight. Here are some of the ridings where, you know, there's so many ridings that are so close. Sukhman Gill elected in Abbotsford South Langley. He is that 25-year-old Conservative candidate who not very experienced, but the party picked him over a seasoned veteran MLA, Mike de Jong, but he won there handily. Port Moody, Coquitlam, you've got Paul Lambert. The suburbs, very important to both all the parties. Jeff Kibble, Cowichan, Malahat, the Conservatives leading there. And Aaron Gunn, controversial candidate in the North Island for some of his comments about residential schools. He's leading up there. Chacow, Richmond Centre, Marpole leading, the Conservative leading there. So we're going to keep an eye on a lot of these tight races here in BC. Back to you, Omar Vashi.
All right, Mi Zhang, thank you so much. And I'm being told right now that NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is about to speak in Burnaby. Let's just listen in to see what he has to say.
Thank you. We're good. Thank you. Thank you. That was very nice of you, very sweet of you all. Thank you so much. You gonna get me all choked up here, guys. I gotta keep it together here, folks. Thank you very much. The love is amazing. I appreciate y'all. Big thank you to Suzanne. She's been with us from the beginning. Huge thank you. Appreciate her so much. Thank you, thank you. And all of you in this room, you guys poured your heart into this. Thank you so much for everything you've done. You're amazing. Love you all. Thank you. And I know in election parties, night parties across the country, people are gathered. I want to thank them all for all their hard work. They're amazing people gathered together across the country. I want to take a moment to congratulate Prime Minister Carney on his victory. He has an important job to do to represent all Canadians and to protect our country and its sovereignty from the threats of Donald Trump. Tonight and every night, all of us here, we're on Team Canada. We want Canada to thrive, and we're going to continue to fight for Canada. I want to congratulate all the other leaders on a hard-fought campaign. It's been the honor of my life to represent the people of Burnaby Central. Tonight they chose, thank you. Tonight they chose a new member of parliament, and I wish them well as they continue to work hard for this community. Obviously, I know this night is a disappointing night for New Democrats. We had really good candidates that lost tonight. I know how hard you worked. I spent time with you. You're amazing. I'm so sorry you're not going to be able to represent your communities. I know you're going to continue to fight for them. I know on how many doors you knocked, how many family dinners you missed, how many nights your kids went to bed without you there to tuck them in. I know it was a tough sacrifice, and I just want to thank, and we can give a round of applause to every single candidate that ran for us. Thank you. Thank all those incredible candidates and their incredible teams, because no candidate can do without a team. The volunteers, the staff, thank you to all those candidates and their incredible staffs. One more time. Choosing to commit your life to politics obviously comes with some sacrifice, but we choose this life because of the chance to change the country we love for the better. We may lose sometimes, and those losses hurt, it's tough. But we are only defeated if we stop fighting. We're only defeated when we believe that those that tell us that we can never dream of a better Canada, a fairer Canada, a more compassionate Canada. I have met New Democrats from coast to coast to coast who will never back down, even when they're told that there's no room for them at the table. We make room for everyone because we believe that there is enough wealth in Canada for all of us to live the life that we deserve. Honestly, I got to avoid making eye contact with certain people because then it's going to get too emotional up here. So I just made the mistake of doing that, so I'm going to look away now. You know who you are. Don't look at me again. Almost 8 years ago, I was elected the leader of this incredible party, this incredible movement. I've worked really hard to be worthy of this trust, to live up to the legacy of our movement. Hold on a sec, I guess. Thank you. One more sec. Tonight, I've been informed our party leader that I'll be stepping down as party leader as soon as an interim leader can be appointed. Now, I could not have done this incredible job without, here's a point, give me a second to break down a bit. I couldn't have done it without the incredible support of my wife, Kidden. She has been my rock. She's been my foundation. For the past couple of years, I've been regretting that I didn't thank her on the night of the last election. So this is my opportunity to make up for it. She has literally been my rock. I couldn't have done this without her. She's backed me up and supported me. She has made so many sacrifices. She convinced me that she's enjoyed them all, but I don't know. But she's amazing. I'm just so thankful. Thanks for being on this journey. I'm going to give you a hug. Hold on. Also, I might break down this part because and Anhad and Dani, my daughters, remind me of the future. God damn it, that we are fighting for. That's just because I get emotional anytime I talk about my kids. I'm very sappy when it comes to my daughters, so I get a little emotional. I've also been supported by my family, and I got to thank my parents who are here today. They're amazing. Love you both. My brother, I wouldn't have been on this journey without my brother, so big shout out to my brother, Katan. And honestly, this might sound funny, but my in-laws, I literally couldn't have done this without my in-laws. They're amazing. Where are my in-laws? They're somewhere here. Wherever they are, they're here. I wanted to look at them and point at them too. Oh, there they are. Yeah, I couldn't have done it without them. Literally, if you're a parent, you know how important your parents are, and your in-laws too, it turns out. So, huge thank you. They've supported us. They've kept me grounded. Given us great advice. I'm so thankful to my family. You can't do this work without great people, and you can't do this without a great family supporting you. So thank you to my family. I'm spilling my water and everything. It's getting a little bit. I'm trying to be graceful here, folks. I also want to thank my NDP caucus. This is a team that together we brought historic change for people. We brought real change to the lives of Canadians. I know that people are concretely better off because of our work over the last 8 years, and no election result will ever diminish that. So thank you so much. My caucus, honestly, I'm so thankful to them all. We did some incredible work together. Seriously, every one of you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I might break down this part too, forgive me if I do. I can only do this, and we can only do this work because of a great staff. Yeah. And y'all just poured your heart into me, into the work that we did. So. It's a good thing that there's water here. This water is very strategically placed for me, so it's very, very lucky that I have. I might need a couple more glasses, so just if anyone can help me out on that, that'd be great. Y'all brought your talent, your heart to the fight every day. We treat each other with respect and dignity and with kindness, and I love y'all. All right. We're almost there, folks. I got a couple other things I really want to get off my chest here. One other thing is, nothing's too spicy. It's just good stuff. I often speak about something my mom taught me. It's a Sikh teaching of Chardi Kala. And this is something fundamental to who I am. And it means, the words break down. Chardi means rising, and Kala means spirits. And it's something that it captures a big part of who I am. And it's the idea that in the fight for justice, in the fight for fairness, in the fight that we fight, we want to have optimism in the face of struggle. We want to have a defiant optimism. It's like this eternal resilience. And this is the spirit that I carry tonight. Obviously, I'm disappointed that we could not win more seats. But I'm not disappointed in our movement. I'm hopeful for our party. I know that we will always choose hope over fear, and optimism over despair, and unity over hate. New Democrats literally built this country. New Democrats built this country. We have built the best of Canada, and we aren't going anywhere. Thank you so much. Love you all. You're amazing. Merci infiniment. Appreciate it so much. Appreciate you all so much. Thank you. You're amazing. Love you all. Every one of you. You're amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh there, giving his wife a hug, an incredibly news-making and poignant speech. Mr. Singh announcing that he will step down as leader of the NDP after failing to retain his own seat or official party status for New Democrats. He says he'll stay on until an interim leader is selected, stopping himself, Omar, a number of times from crying. Clearly a very, very emotional night. for Mr. Singh, and a hugely consequential decision for him.
And not a speech that any politician wants to give. I mean, Mr. Singh was humble, he was gracious, he was emotional, talking about the sacrifice that is carrying his daughter right there, talking about the sacrifice that public service takes on a family, especially a young family as he's got. But, you know, regardless of, I think, what political stripes you wear, the fact that you had somebody like him in Canadian politics, that you had somebody like him break historic ground, and really somebody who's living the promise of possibility in this country, right? Inspiring future generations. He talked about inspiring his two young children as well. But, you know, obviously a very difficult showing in his riding, and difficult for him personally. There will be a lot of soul searching that comes from this. And history will decide whether, you know, how effective he was as a leader or not. But the fact that he played the game, the fact that he entered the race and was in it makes the country better, certainly.
Yeah, definitely. I think to be fair, though, the outcome of this election also determined, you know, is a rendering on his leadership to a certain degree. Obviously, there were a number of other factors at play, but he made the decision to sign on to that agreement with the Liberals. That imparted a certain view of him and his party on a number of Canadians, and then you combine that with Donald Trump, and you're left with, you know, some upsets like the one you're looking at on the screen. We're lucky enough to have Tom Mulcair, the former leader of the NDP, in the room with us right now. Tom, I watched you watching that speech. You were glued to the screen. We didn't think in our earlier conversations tonight that despite an possible outcome like this, Jagmeet Singh tonight would announce he's stepping down. Did he have any other choice given the results?
Despite all the emotion, he had had enough time to digest it, and I think that he was smart to pull the Band-Aid off. Just get in front of the microphone, go through that very emotional state, while the people that he wanted to thank were all there, physically in front of him. Spoke very movingly with his wife, carried his little daughter on his shoulders as he went out, and just said, you know, it's going to take a little while to find an interim leader. It's actually a relatively easy process in the NDP, mostly the caucus involved in that, and they'll live to fight another day. It's been very tough for him this campaign. I think you mentioned one of the key things. I mentioned one before, which was the Conservative attacks on him that might have actually hurt the Conservatives because the NDP vote wasn't there and it all went over Liberal, or a good part of it. And the other part was when he made that deal with Trudeau, he just didn't have anything to say on the doorstep when people said, but why not vote Liberal? Because that's what he had been doing for 3 years. So it was, at the time, it was a tactical move that they thought was going to help them stick around for a while. Strategically, long-term, it turned out to be very costly for them, and we just saw the results tonight.
I want to get to Kathleen Monk right now across this room, and obviously this party has to go through a period of soul-searching right now. Tom was mentioning earlier on that, you know, Valerie Plante, the Montreal mayor, is one of the names that's been put forward. Who else will the party look at? What other names are you hearing?
Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of names that are going to come forward. But I think tonight, really, what we got to reflect on is that, you know, just 10 years ago, Omar, our party, the New Democrats, were actually poised to possibly form government in 2015, you know? And now we're down to what looks like 7 seats. It is remarkable. And yes, New Democrats still hold government in Manitoba and obviously in British Columbia and our official opposition in 4 other provinces. But this is going to cause some serious soul searching. And there's many questions, not just about do we want to be the conscience of Parliament or do we want to seek power? Or it's also why aren't we the party that people turn to, working people turn to when it comes to things like threats to the economy? We're facing incredible income inequality right now in our country. This is a moment where New Democrats should be able to seize more support and power. But as I said to you earlier, I think that New Democrat voters just lent their vote to Carney right now. And if he does not succeed in delivering for them and fighting back off Trump, they will take that vote back. And now New Democrats are going to have to take a lot of time to rebuild. And, you know, the one thing about the courageous, I would say, decision of Mr. Singh tonight to resign right away, he is that happy warrior, is that he won't have to go to a leadership review. He won't face that. The party will begin with a process. And that process has to begin with thinking about what kind of a party we need to be. Because one thing that is clear to me is that Canadians do not want a two-party system. Many of the things that really form the values of Canadians are things that New Democrats have fought for in Parliament. So I expect this kind of, two-party race that we've seen in this to not be the future, and that Canadians will return back to New Democrats, but we have a lot of rebuilding to do before that happens.
Scott, were you surprised that Jagmeet Singh made the announcement that he did tonight?
No. This is a catastrophic, devastating campaign end result. There was no option available to him, and there was no dignified option other than to take it. And I thought he performed admirably.
I'm so sorry, Scott. We got to interrupt you because Pierre Poilievre is actually just about to take to the podium to deliver his remarks. I believe any moment. I think he's walking into the Conservative headquarters, the room there as we speak. We don't have a final result, I should say, for his riding, where he still trails with 150 polls reporting the Liberal candidate Bruce Fanjoy by more than 2,000 votes at this time. Pierre Poilievre up there on stage alongside his wife. The two of them have been at basically every single campaign event at breakneck speed throughout the last 5 weeks. He is scheduled to take the microphone any moment now, but this story of his riding is certainly another fascinating one. Let's take a listen.
Merci, chers Canadiens.
Thank you, dear Canadians.
Je vous aime aussi.
I love you too.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's with profound gratitude that I stand before you today at the moment of this historic election. Because only in Canada could the story that Anna and I bring to the stage be possible. Adopted son of school teachers and a Venezuelan refugee, stand on this stage in front of our proud country, offering ourselves up to serve for the future. After millions of people have shown up and marked their X, spoken their voice, and exercised their democratic rights. We could not be more proud. We could not be more grateful for the opportunity the Canadians have given us. Speaking now of Anna, I want to take a moment to thank my incredible wife. She's been by my side. She's my rock. I love and cherish you and our little ones more than you'll ever know. And I could not have done any of this without you. Thank you so much. I love you. Now, my message to Canadians. The promise that was made to me and to all of you is that anybody from anywhere could achieve anything, that through hard work, you could get a great life, is and will continue to be to restore that promise. Thank you. To the candidates who ran under our banner as Conservatives, to the volunteers who knocked on the doors, made phone calls, put up lawn signs, rallied at our events, donated their hard-earned money to our cause, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. To the millions of people who voted for the Conservative Party and put their hopes and dreams in our vision, thank you. It will be an honor to continue to fight for you and to be a champion of your cause as we go forward.
It would be a great honor to continue to fight for you because I have the honor of being your voice and fighting for the conservative values that you voted for. And especially it will be an honor to continue to work towards the promise of Canada, that anyone here who works hard can have a beautiful life in a beautiful home in a safe community. That is our vision, and we will bring it home. Thank you.
To my fellow Conservatives, we have much to celebrate tonight. We've gained well over 20 seats. We got the highest share of vote our party has received since 1988. We denied the NDP and Liberals enough seats to form a coalition government, meaning and we did all of this in a very difficult environment. That said, we are cognizant of the fact that we didn't quite get over the finish line yet. We know that change is needed, but change is hard to come by. It takes time. It takes work. And that's why we have to learn the lessons of tonight so that we can have an even better result the next time the Canadians decide the future for the country. Canadians have opted for a razor-thin minority government, a virtual tie in the vote count. So I would like to congratulate Prime Minister Carney on leading this minority government. We'll have plenty of opportunity to debate and disagree, but tonight we come together as Canadians. We will do our job. Yes, we will do our job to hold the government to account. But first, we congratulate people from all political backgrounds on participating in the democratic process. And as I said, while we will do our constitutional duty of holding government to account and proposing better alternatives, we will always put Canada first as we stare down tariffs and other irresponsible threats from President Trump. Conservatives will work with the Prime Minister and all parties with the common goal of defending Canada's interests and getting a new trade deal that puts these tariffs behind us while protecting our sovereignty and the Canadian people. I want to thank my Conservative team, my caucus, my members of the Conservative staff and others who've helped reshape the entire political landscape in this country. Conservatives have achieved major breakthroughs tonight. We brought in record support from blue-collar and unionized workers, youth, new Canadians. We gave voices to countless people across this country who've been left out and left behind for far too long. We won the big debates of our time on the carbon tax, on inflation, on housing, on the drug crisis, on crime. Conservatives have been leading the debate, and we will continue to put people right across this country, but we will not stop there. Every single day, our Conservative caucus and I will be holding the government to account on behalf of the millions of Canadians who believed in the message of change. En tant que parti,
as a party, we have expanded our support, and every day the Conservative caucus and myself will be working in Ottawa to bring the government to account. On behalf of the millions of Canadians who decided to vote for real change, I've had the honor of crisscrossing this country and speaking to the thousands of people who shared their concerns and worries and hopes with me.
Hardworking people took precious time out of their day to tell me about their struggles, their pain, their fears, but also their hopes and dreams. Welders and waitresses, farmers and factory workers, seniors, small business owners and single mothers, young Canadians and young families pleading for the chance to own a home, parents who worried that their kids would never be able to move out of their home, grandparents who saw their grandchildren suffering from the shortfalls of our economy, and countless others who are afraid to go outside because of the rising wave of crime. All of these stories touched my heart and gave me inspiration to work towards something better. These people continue to need voices, and I will continue to fight for them every day, and every day we will never give up on fighting for the Canadian people. Thank you. We hear your stories. We will carry those stories with us into Parliament. We will not forget the people for whom we work and for whom we fight every day. Now, I know that some of you might be disappointed that change did not get over the finish line tonight. Change takes time. Most of all, it requires that we never give up, because our people and our country are worth fighting for. Je vous ai entendu.
I've heard you, and I carried your stories with me throughout this campaign. Your stories will stay with me when I fight with my Conservative team to continue defending you and pushing forward your interests. For those who desperately need change, I know that you're disappointed. Change is difficult and it takes time. But it especially means that we can never give up, because our country and its people deserve that we fight for them.
Everyone who stood with us today and the millions of people who voted for other parties. And so, my message tonight, for the single mother working 2 jobs but still has an empty fridge and an empty bank account, for the young people who despair at never being able to afford a home, for the seniors on fixed incomes whose savings are eroded by inflation and no longer feel safe in their local neighborhood parks, for those who are now living in fear and terror because of crime, for those worried about losing their jobs because of unacceptable tariffs from the United States of America, for all of those who feel left behind and forgotten, my message is one of hope. Change will take time, but we will fight for that change, and we will deliver that change, and we will never give up on fighting for the great Canadian promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, that hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful house on a safe street protected by our brave troops under our proud flag. Canada first, Canada always. Let's bring it home. Thank you very much, Canada. Merci beaucoup, Canada.
Yeah, we fight for what's right. We're wild and we're free from the...
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre there in a concession speech saying he's proud, saying he's grateful. Obviously not the outcome that the Conservative leader wanted, pointing to the fact that the Conservatives have increased their vote share, the popular vote, north of 40%. In any other scenario, this would have been enough to secure a majority government. And Vashi not sounding as though he's going anywhere, saying that he still wants to fight. He would be honored to continue to fight for you, is what he said, even as in his riding of Carleton. I think the last time we had the board up, we're seeing it right here, I think. Bruce Fanjoy, the Liberal candidate, is leading with about 2,400 votes in his home riding. So, we'll see what happens with Pierre Poilievre, but it has been a night of tight races, especially so in this riding of Carleton, which is Pierre Poilievre's riding.
Yeah, he might have gotten out deliberately in advance of the conclusion to this riding to deliver that speech, which I think can be described as defiant. Like people wanted change, and to be fair to Mr. Poilievre, the Liberals were, the Conservatives were able to very much increase their share of the vote, very much increase the number of seats, but it did not, as he pointed out, get them over the finish line. And there was, quite an effort by Mr. Poilievre to say that that's, not the end of their story, basically, to lay out what will be probably the beginning of the argument for him to stay. I figure that's a much more difficult argument to make if, in fact, he loses his seat, but that is an if at this point. I wanted to swing over to Corey tonight to get your view on what we just heard from Mr. Poilievre. Definitely no intention to go anywhere. If he loses his seat, how much of a more difficult proposition does that become?
Well, what a weird night, because I think, as you correctly pointed out, there's a lot of good news in these results for the Conservatives in terms of their share of the vote, and the seat count, is impressive. Like, he's increased their seat count. However, losing your own seat, and I don't think it's going to be that close, looking at those results and looking at the ridings around it, puts him in a very vulnerable position, because that decision in the past has largely been made up by caucus. I think my view is that he maintains a very high level of support from that caucus, and I think if he wants to stay on, he'll probably have the opportunity to do so. But it's more challenging to lead a caucus and lead your party from outside of Parliament. So I think if he does want to stay on, one of the first orders of business will be to find somebody to step down and give him an opportunity to run to rejoin the House. But I guess time will tell whether or not that happens. But I think looking at the results tonight, he's got a very strong position to stay on if he chooses to do so. You know, what a weird evening.
And speaking of weird, you know, our decision desk has just handed us some numbers, which I find fascinating. I mean, all of us have just been, you know, quite riveted by these numbers. And this, again, keep in mind, this is at where we are at this stage tonight. So if there's any doubt that every vote counts, every vote matters, there are a couple of scenarios here. For the Conservatives to have won this election, not minority or majority, we're just talking about a plain win, they would have needed 2,700 more votes in 10 ridings. Not a lot of votes when you consider the millions of voters who are eligible across this country. For the Liberals to go from the position that they're in right now, a minority government, to a majority government, they would have needed 2,700 votes in 8 ridings. So this is an extremely close, it's thin. Amanda, I want to get to you because you've been waiting patiently, but I just want to get some quick thoughts from James and from Rana about what Pierre Poilievre had to say.
I mean, defiant, strong. I think it's strategically good for him to get out before the results in his riding are there. But look, he's had a historically good outcome, right? I mean, over 40% of the vote, got a bigger percentage share of the vote than Stephen Harper ever got in any of the 5 campaigns that Stephen Harper contested. He has reshaped the Conservative Party into a party that is about sort of middle-class values and broadened the party in a lot of support. You look at the support that he got in suburban Canada. Came very close to picking up seats in Brampton. He won a seat in Burnaby that nobody ever imagined, but we lost some seats. You know, we also lost some notable people, like the whip, Carolyn Finley in South Surrey. Looks like she lost her seat. We lost Peterborough. So I mean, there's a lot of movement happening there. But he's been an extraordinarily successful leader of the Conservative Party. There's no question about that. But the efficiency of the vote and the margin. But look, by the time the next election campaign comes around, the New Democrats will have a different leader, so the dynamic on the left will be different. Who knows what will happen with the relationship with the United States. Mark Carney will have had some debris around his government that can be pointed to as sort of lack of having delivered effective results. And I think Pierre could stand, I think, very effectively and tall. I think Corey's right, though, that the Conservative Party, we're a fragile party. We're a broad coalition of disparate interests, of people who come from different parts of the country, of different expectations. And I think there will be a lot of soul-searching about what fell short tonight and whether or not it can be repaired and how it can be repaired. So I think the humility part of his leadership, and tonight it was good for him to come out and to present as strong and highlight the successes on a high level so that people feel good about what was achieved. The going through the shortcomings will be a long and stressful process for sure. And I think the humility can come from that, from Pierre, and he can talk about what he fixed and what he can fix and what he can learn about a pathway forward. But no, it's a painful night, but Pierre has a lot to be proud of in terms of where he brought this party. And those who say, by the way, and I think this is important to point out, those who say he blew a 20-point lead, he did not. He would have beaten Justin Trudeau by 20 points. Mark Carney is a different opponent. The dynamic was entirely different. It's true Donald Trump was elected president in November, but he didn't start musing about a 51st state and attacking Canada with the tariffs. That didn't come until this year. We can criticize about how it might have been planned or could have been communicated or pushed back differently from. But this narrative that Pierre blew a 25-point lead is just factually not true. He would have beaten Justin Trudeau by 20 points. Mark Carney was a different opponent, and there was a collapse of the New Democrats. So
yeah, but politics isn't fair. That happens. I mean, there has to be some ownership of the loss tonight.
No question.
I understand what he was saying about all that increase in support. It's very fair. Yeah. But you didn't get past the finish line. You lost.
Correct. And that's what the next that's the coming few months will certainly be about where he fell short. But however, he had better results of any Conservative leader since I was 12 years old, and I'm 48, almost 49. and so you know, but we count seats, we don't count votes, and the seats weren't quite there. And you know, there's going to be a lot of assessment about how to close that gap on the seats.
Rana, you wanted to jump in. Can he stay if he loses his own seat?
Yeah, he's earned the right to stay. I mean, we heard him tonight. He's a great leader. He's a great parliamentarian. He reached out saying Canada first. We can work together to make sure whether it's tariffs, Trump, whether it's on other issues, he'll put Canada first. He'll put Canadians first. He congratulated Mark Carney. And I think he's ready to get back into Parliament. Now, if he loses his seat, then it's a logistical thing of trying to find somebody giving up one for him. But as James said, he had a remarkable result tonight. And that's the way the seats play out. But he's earned his right to stay. He's very popular in the caucus, very popular in the party.
The last time, by the way, we had a similar dynamic to this was 2004. Stephen Harper, in his first campaign in 2004, we fell short. We thought we might beat the Liberals in 2004. Scott Reed remembers that campaign very well. We thought we might win that campaign, but we fell short. Stephen Harper, his leadership, he very quickly came out like this on election night and was very proud of the accomplishments that we had at that time, which was coming together and creating the Conservative Party to compete on a national basis. The dynamic of the fact that it was a minority parliament, at that time in 2004, the first minority parliament that we'd seen since 1980, so we weren't quite familiar with them. And the fragility of that minority parliament allowed Stephen Harper to very quickly get the caucus rallied back together. The relative fragility of this minority parliament and the closeness of seats might be one of those things that Pierre can point to and say, look, let me tell you what I learned from this campaign. Let me talk about our successes. Let me talk about why we fell short. But let's keep in mind, we have a narrow gap between this and when the next election may come. It may come at any time. I'm an experienced leader, and let me tell you how I'm going to close this gap so we can be successful next time. So this is the parallel historically could well be the 2004 loss of Stephen Harper.
I just want to do a slight pivot and go to our CTV's chief financial correspondent, Amanda Lang. I mean, you know, if you're part of the business community in Canada, you're watching the result tonight, you know that it's a minority government situation, a liberal minority government situation. What are you thinking? I mean, does Donald Trump see this scenario as a weakness? And if you're part of the business community, how are you interpreting today?
Well, I will say this. The business community isn't a monolith, so they don't all vote as a bloc. They will vote Liberal, they will vote NDP, they'll vote Conservative, they'll vote Green. They do not like this result. As a monolith, I will say that. The business community and a lot of Canadians will feel this is an unstable result. But for businesses, and by that I don't just mean giant corporations, I mean mom and pop shops that have been frozen in place because of the tariff situation, including things like that $800 de minimis that hangs over us that will crush small businesses. This is a bad outcome. And the fact that we're talking now about the potential that, you know, we've lost one political leader and maybe the party status altogether. We won't know the results when we go to bed tonight. These seats are still shaking out. And yes, the uncertainty of, do we have a coalition? Can the Liberals and the Conservatives come together? Because there's no other math that is going to make sense for a fight against Donald Trump.
So it's uncertainty on top of uncertainty.
It's the compound factor. And by the way, that's all overlaid over the fact that we have challenges in this country economically that we didn't talk enough about in this election because it was sort of clouded by what's happening with Donald Trump and a trade war. And they are bigger and more important than that trade war. They'll last longer. We need to solve them. We all know what they are. It's not just housing affordability. It's growth. It's job creation. It's what do we want our future to look like? What will the jobs be? Productivity. Yes, I know. Boring, but it's true. Those are still with us, and we need to solve them.
I just wanted to jump in and bring over Scott Reed. The numbers keep edging up for the Liberals. It's a very big minority. They're not far from 172. The finding of dance partners might not be as challenging as it looked 2 hours ago.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it narrows even more when we see all the advanced polls come in various ridings and so forth. This is definitely a solid minority. And that will give Carney as Prime Minister the flexibility in Parliament to figure out on a vote-by-vote basis who he collaborates with. There is no chance in God's green heavens that he is going to pursue a pact with the remaining NDP members. I mean, if one lesson can be withdrawn from the past Parliament, it is that might not be the recipe for electoral success. So I don't think that that's going to be followed. I want to say something about Poilievre, though, because it was a set of fascinating choices that he made this evening. Right? First of all, he gave a victory speech, which, you know, we're going to say, well, maybe that was wise. But if you were looking to see whether in this Parliament confronted by this crisis coming from Donald Trump, we were going to see any opportunity for collaboration between the Conservatives and the Liberals, you sure didn't see it in those remarks. He gave his stump speech and declared victory tonight. In loss, he declared victory, and he dedicated himself, just as James said, to the idea that it is just victory slightly delayed. We will just carry on, which signals that he will look for the first opportunity to defeat the government and to get himself elected as prime minister. And so all this talk of collaborative, that's about as collaborative as a bandsaw. That's not going to happen. He's not going to be collaborative. There's no indication of that. Second of all, he got out ahead of his riding, which makes sense. But it means that he obviously fears that he will lose his riding. And I agree with everyone here who said that he's going to have the hand to maintain his position, even if he loses his riding. But let's not pretend that that's a strong leader. That is a very weakened position. He then has to find a seat. He has to then defend the fact that he wasn't able to beat a novice who took over a party that was in disrepair. So I don't think this is the victory that Pierre Poilievre is portraying, and I don't see any sense of collaboration, and I do not smell the slightest whiff of humility.
I guess if you're only like 1% away or less than 1% away, though, from the popular vote, you do, I understand what Scott's saying, but you do understand also how Poilievre and his party would feel like they're so close. Maybe it is just another election like in 2006, for example, or 2011, that kind of thing, right? I guess Scott's point is well taken, but if you're a point away from the Liberals...
If the national imperative is let's deal with Trump, but he's declaring that his imperative is to get elected as prime minister as soon as possible. Let's get 2004 and 2006 moving right now. That is not in concert with Canadians who want to see this.
Forgive me. We've just got Diana Carney taking to the stage right now. Let's listen in.
Bonsoir Canada, et merci pour votre vote.
Hello, Canada, and thank you for your vote.
I'm so grateful to you. Thank you for supporting your Liberal candidates. And thank you for choosing my husband's vision of a positive, unified, and above all, a strong country. Over the past few weeks, Mark and I have had the enormous privilege of meeting so many people across this great country. Everywhere we've visited, we've been energized by the passion, the commitment, and the kindness and belief that we have encountered. Not to mention the beauty and diversity of this amazing country. As we've traced a path from winter into spring, through all this, I've watched my husband listen and learn. I've watched him inspire confidence and take on new skills. But most of all, I've seen him remain true to what he's always been. Consistent, compassionate, loyal, and driven by an exceptionally strong set of values. He's thoughtful, respectful, and honest. And I think and hope that you now have come to appreciate that alongside his capacity for dealing with the most serious of matters, he has a great mind for trivia, a wicked sense of humor, and a wonderful smile. He's been that way since our very first date, back when we were young grad students, when we went to that dinner, and he said to me, he stopped the conversation, and he said to me, I want you to know I'm committed to move back to Canada and to work in the public service. So here we are. As his partner, I could not be more proud of him. And as a Canadian, I'm so thankful that the man I met more than 30 years ago has held tight to that strong commitment to serve.
That is the spirit.
That is Nepean. That is the spirit of Nepean behind me right there. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Bonsoir.
It's a great evening.
Quel bonsoir. C'est un bon bonsoir. I have a question. Who's ready? Who's ready? Who's ready to stand up for Canada with me? And who's ready? Who's ready to build Canada strong? Okay, we got that settled. That's good. Avant de commencer, je voudrais féliciter les autres chefs de parti.
I'd like to congratulate the leaders of the other parties
et de tout le travail
for their campaigns and for all their hard work.
Merci pour leur service envers le Canada.
Service to Canada, now and in the future.
I want to thank the leaders of the other parties. I want to salute the contribution of Jagmeet Singh. I noticed his remarks. Leading on progressive values. Elizabeth May, who will be returning to Parliament. Yves-François Blanchet. And I want to congratulate Pierre Poilievre on a hard-fought, fair, good campaign, his commitment to the country that we both love. They all have many, many more contributions to our land. Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Diana, for your work on this campaign. Thank you, Diana, for the commitment and compassion you bring to everything that you do. Tonight simply would not have been possible without you and without the support of our 4 children who inspire me to service every single day. I also want to salute the women and men who put their name on the ballot from all parties. Thank you for standing up to serve our country at this critical time. And for those who were elected, particularly those Liberals who were elected, I am looking forward to working together to deliver for Canadians. This says, Bruce. And Bruce, yes, Bruce Vanjoy. I'm looking forward to working with Bruce Vanjoy. Fantastic. He will be a great MP. We're going to have fun tonight. Yes, we're going to have fun. Bien sûr. Je tiens à remercier les milliers de bénévoles.
I would like to thank the thousands of volunteers this evening here and across the country who gave their time, knocked on doors, made phone calls, and talked with their neighbors and members of their community. And they did this to give us a strong government.
You know, I chose to enter politics because I felt we needed big changes in this country. But big changes guided by strong Canadian values. Values that I learned at the dinner table from my parents, Bob and Verley, and from my siblings. I appreciate this more in retrospect from my siblings. My siblings, Brenda, Sean, and Brian. Values that I learned on the ice from my coaches. Values that have been reinforced as I've met with Canadians across this great country. And those include 3 values that I want to highlight this evening. Humility. It's Canada after all. Ambition. It's Canada after all. And unity. It's Canada. I love you. Right back. Right back. These are good values. These are Canadian values. Values that I will do my best. I'm just getting worked up here. These are values that I will do my best to uphold every day as your Prime Minister. You betcha. Okay, well, you have to judge after this next section because I am going to begin with the value of humility. And by admitting that I have much to be humble about. It's true. Over my long, that's not an applause line, it's just a statement of fact. Over my long career, I have made many mistakes, and I will make more. But I commit to admitting them openly, to correcting them quickly, and always learning from them. You know, humility underscores the importance of governing as a team in cabinet and in caucus, and working constructively with all parties across Parliament, of working in partnership with the provinces and the territories, and with Indigenous peoples. And at this time, it underscores the value of bringing together labor, business, civil society to advance the nation-building investments we need to transform our economy. Humility is also about recognizing that one of the responsibilities of government is to prepare for the worst, not hope for the best. As I've been warning for months, America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never ever happen. But we also must recognize the reality that our world has fundamentally changed. There is also, for me, as I stand before you this evening, humility in recognizing that, well, many have chosen to place your trust in me, trust in the Liberal Party. Millions of our fellow citizens preferred a different outcome. And my message to every Canadian is this: no matter where you live, no matter what language you speak, no matter how you voted, I will always do my best to represent everyone who calls Canada home. You know, during this short campaign, I went to Saskatchewan and Alberta a couple of times, even though, you know, we're Liberals. It's tough. It's tough out there. I grew up there. But I went because I intend to govern for all Canadians. And au cours de cette campagne,
during this campaign, Quebecers opened their doors to me and gave me their trust, and I'm deeply touched, and I thank you for that. The French language.
La langue française, la culture québécoise.
The French language and Quebec culture are at the core of Canada's identity. They define the country that I love so much. And I will defend those tirelessly. With the strong team of Quebec MPs that you have just sent to Ottawa, together we will ensure that Quebec continues to prosper within a strong Canada. And whether you work in the tar sands in Fort Mac, a nurse in Joliette, or an accountant in Toronto, there are many accountants in Toronto, my government will work for you all.
As we come here after this most consequential election, let's put an end to the division and anger of the past. We are all Canadian, and my government will work for and with everyone. I began with humility, but Canadians are ambitious. And now, more than ever, it is a time for ambition. It is a time to be bold, to meet this crisis with overwhelming positive force of a united Canada. Because we are going to build, baby, build. Exactly. Throughout, not for, well, no, we're building now. We've gotten over that bit. Throughout our history, there have been turning points. Throughout our history, there have been turning points when the world's fortunes were in the balance. That was the case at the start of the Second World War, just as it was at the end of the Cold War. And each time, Canada chose to step up, to assert ourselves as a free, sovereign, and ambitious nation, to lead the path of democracy and freedom, and, because we are Canadian, to do so with compassion and generosity. We are once again at one of those hinge moments of history. Our old relationship with the United States, a relationship based on steadily increasing integration, is over. The system of open global trade anchored by the United States, a system that Canada has relied on since the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped deliver prosperity for a country for decades, is over. These are tragedies, but it's also our new reality. We are over the shock of the American betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons.
But you're going to take us forward.
We have to look out for ourselves. And above all, we have to take care of each other. When I sit down with President Trump, it will be to discuss the future economic and security relationship between two sovereign nations. And it will be with our full knowledge that we have many, many other options than the United States to build prosperity for all Canadians.
We will strengthen our relationships with reliable partners in Europe, Asia, and elsewhere. And if the United States no longer wants to play a top role in the world economy, Canada will do so. We are masters of our own home. We will build thousands of homes, an energy superpower, a good career in the specialized trades, and a single Canadian economy, not 13.
Because this is Canada, and we decide what happens here. We will need to think big and act bigger. Your phone's ringing. Sorry, it's okay. All right. Just hang on. It's okay? Yeah. It might be important. We will need to do things previously thought impossible at speeds we haven't seen in generations. It's time to build twice as many homes every year with an entirely new housing industry using Canadian technology, Canadian skilled workers, Canadian lumber. It's time to build new trade and energy corridors, working in partnership with the provinces, territories, and Indigenous peoples. It's time to build hundreds of thousands of not just good jobs, but good careers in the skilled trades. It's time to build Canada into an energy superpower in both clean and conventional energy. And it's time to build an industrial strategy that makes Canada more competitive while fighting climate change. We will build one Canadian economy, not 13, with a government committed to free trade in Canada by Canada Day. The point is that we can give ourselves far more than the Americans can ever take away. But even given that, I want to be clear. The coming days and months will be challenging, and they will call for some sacrifices. But we will share those sacrifices by supporting our workers and our businesses. Les défis devant nous sont
The
intimidatants.
challenges ahead of us are intimidating, but that's normal. Big change, such as what we're going through right now, is always a worry. We have a lot of work to do, but I'm confident. I have confidence in you. I have confidence in Canada.
Because Canada is more than a nation. We are and we always will be a confederation, a sacred set of ideas and ideals built on practical foundations. That we know we're not always perfect, but we always strive to be good. We do things because they're right, not because they're easy. That we see kindness as a virtue, not as a weakness. Most importantly, we know that our strength lies in our resolve to work together as a country. It relies on our unity. You know, on the second day of this campaign, I went to Gander, where on 9/11, they welcomed thousands of passengers into their homes without question or hesitation. I sat down with two of the many heroes of the time, Diane Davis and Beulah Cooper. And during our conversation, they showed me a thank you card that they'd received from a young girl called Ellie, who wrote, "Your kindness motivates me to use my kindness." That touching phrase captures what Canadians instinctively know, that virtue is like a muscle that grows with its exercise. We become just by doing just acts, brave by doing brave acts. When we are kind, kindness grows. When we seek unity, unity grows. When we are Canadian, Canada grows. And united over our history, we have done hard, seemingly impossible things. United, we have built one nation in harsh conditions despite a sometimes hostile neighbor. Yes, they have form on this, the Americans. United, we have confronted our own past with Indigenous peoples. Unis, nous avons bâti un pays qui
United, we have built a country that brings together languages, cultures, and beliefs that are all different. United, we have built essential cultural institutions such as CBC Radio-Canada.
United, we have created universal public health care. And now, in the face of this crisis, united, we are buying Canadian. We are exploring everything this country has to offer. We are supporting our friends and neighbors in the crosshairs of President Trump through a crisis that we did not create. United, we will win this trade war and build the strongest economy in the G7, an economy that works for everyone. Au cours des derniers mois, les Canadiens
Over the last few months, and Canadians have done their part. They have come together to defend our country and our way of life. I promise, when we are threatened, we will fight.
With everything we have to get the best deal for Canada. We will protect our workers and businesses, and above all, we will build an independent future for our great country. A future that makes the greatest country on the earth even better. Together, we will build a Canada worthy of our values. We will build Canada strong, Canada free, Canada forever. Vive le Canada. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Mark Carney in Nepean at the headquarters there, and really getting to keep his job essentially, but this time with the mandate of the people, pledging to be a prime minister for all Canadians, not just Liberals. And actually, he talked a lot about building. He's obviously got to build bridges with members of the other parties now, especially in a minority situation, and also has to build bridges with Donald Trump.
Yeah, or attempt to, I guess, something like that. He did say, I remember when he dropped the writ, or in particular after that conversation with Donald Trump last month, that on day one after the election, basically you would then be looking at, entering into negotiations with Trump ASAP. So a lot in that speech about what that plan looks like, very similar to what we heard on the campaign. Let's go to Heather Butts with some more details on how these seats are kind of rolling out right now.
Vashi, thank you so much. We're going to look at those seats right across the country. An incredible night there for the Liberal leader, Mark Carney. There he is. Just a great experience for him, and accepting that congratulations from people at his campaign office there at his celebration party. I'm joined by our pollster, Nick Nanos. Nick, an incredible night for this party,
wow.
An incredible night for the Conservatives, really, with their voter turnout as well. So let's talk about, you know what, Nick, I'm sorry, we're actually going to throw to Genevieve. She's on the floor there with Mark Carney.
Right on.
Great group of MPs coming with a commitment to work for our great country, and we will get to it right away. Thank you very much.
There was just a quick, short few words there from Mark Carney speaking to our Genevieve Bushman, who is on the ground there at the Liberal headquarters. Okay, Nick, back to us here. Yep. We're looking at the voter turnout here and the vote count and how it all played out. The vote efficiency. We've been talking about that earlier in the evening. We'll start with Atlantic Canada.
Yeah, you can see, Heather, the thing is Atlantic Canada is usually good for the Liberals. They actually did quite well. You can see leading and elected in 25 seats. But, the thing is that when we look at the vote efficiency, the Liberals were punching above their weight. Only 55% of the vote yielded almost 8 out of every 10 seats, while the Conservatives were not as efficient on that front.
All right, Nick, let's move across to Quebec. We've been talking about this all evening to see how it would play out between the Bloc Québécois and the Liberals.
Yeah, the thing is that when you look at the numbers, especially in terms of the seats, you can see the Bloc dropping and the Liberals doing actually quite well. But, when you crunch the numbers on the vote, percent of the seats, even though they had 1/4 of all the votes cast in Quebec.
All right, let's continue west, and we're going to head into Ontario now. Taking a look at the standings in Ontario, we'll bring those up. The Liberals 67 seats, the Conservatives 55. What played out here, Nick?
Yeah, the thing is bad news for the New Democrats, but you can see that the Conservatives were on par. But check out the Liberal numbers, much more efficient at converting into seats, and NDP basically nowhere, no seats, even with 5% of the votes.
Nothing for the NDP. Okay, let's move across to the prairies. We'll take a look here at the standings. We'll bring up those numbers for us here. The Conservatives, 54 seats in the prairies, Liberals 9, and just 2 for the NDP now.
Not a big surprise. This is the Conservative heartland for the Tories and doing really well. And, the thing is they punch above their weight. Electorally, getting 60% of the vote, but 83% of the seats. Not as efficient